Imagine this conversation. Honey, how was work today? It was okay, except I accidentally sent $900 million out to people who weren't supposed to have it. Man, this is some crazy stuff. Ask any finance professional about their worst fears and they'll tell you that sending money electronically to the wrong person is one of the worst nightmares. And that's why when I heard that Citibank sent $900 million via wire transfer by mistake, it sent goosebumps throughout my body. And it all happened because the one person who prepped the wire put a check mark in the wrong place, and the two reviewers who reviewed the wire failed to spot that mistake. This all happened in August of 2020. A Citibank contractor, rather than sending the periodic interest payment of $8 million to the lenders, he or she wired $900 million, or almost the entire balance of the loan, by accident. Citibank immediately realized the mistake and then sent an email to the wire recipients, or the lenders in this case, saying, "Oops, sorry about that. Please send us the money back." Some of them complied and returned the money because, shockingly, not all hedge fund managers are cutthroat wolves like Bobby Axelrod from Billions. But some of the lenders decided to keep the money, about $500 million in this case. Citibank sued them, but the judge shut them down and ruled in favor of the hedge fund managers. So in today's video, I'm going to tell you what happened, why it happened, and what companies do to prevent wire mistakes from happening. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Bill Hanna. I'm the financial controller. I'm a licensed CPA in the great state of New York, and I have over 15 years of experience in the field of finance, where I started out at PricewaterhouseCoopers as an auditor, and then I transitioned out to private industry, and then I worked my way up from a financial analyst position all the way up to a corporate controller position, which is what I do today. And this channel is all about giving you the summary or the juice of my experience over the last decade and a half. And I do this here in the YouTube channel as well as on my website through blog posts, an online course, and templates. So go ahead and check that out as well. This case involves Citibank, Revlon, a well-known US makeup brand, and a bunch of hedge funds who were acting as the lenders in this deal. And usually, most of the time, you'd expect a bank like Citibank to be the lender in this case. But in this deal here, Citibank was a middleman, or simply an administrator for the loan. So what's the role of Citibank here as an administrator for this deal? Well, that means that it writes up the paperwork, collects the interest from the borrower and sends it to the lender, and then when the loan term ends, it collects the loan principal and sends it to the lender to close out the loan. So in that day in August of 2020, it was business as usual. Citibank received the monthly interest payment, or $8 million, from the borrower, Revlon in this case, and it was about to send the interest to the various lenders or the hedge funds. But instead of wiring $8 million or the interest payment, Citibank wired $900 million by mistake, or the entire principal balance. It was a simple human error. The bank notified the recipient of the error and it was able to get about $400 million back. But the rest of them, or about 10 asset managers, refused to give the money back, and for a good reason. And we are going to dive into that reason here in a minute. But first, to understand what happened, let's look at Citibank's process for sending a wire transfer. Citibank relies on a so-called 6 Eyes protocol for high-value transactions. It simply means that at least 3 people must approve large sums of money transfers. The extra pairs are deployed as a measure of precaution. A good way to think of it is like 3 scientists carefully examining a rocket before it's fired into space. Citibank doesn't process its own wires though. Yes, you heard me right. Citibank relies on a third-party firm called Wipro, which is located in India, to process these wires for them. So how does using a third-party wiring firm work? Well, the process of creating a wire here begins with a maker, usually a Wipro employee in this case, by filling in the information into Citi's system, which is called FlexCube Loan Processing System. Then a checker, which is also a Wipro employee, vets the transaction and looks at the information to make sure it's correct. The third and final step is when an approver, or an actual Citibank employee, confirms the transaction initiated by the 2 Wipro employees. And here's the fun part. When the Wipro employee was entering the wire in the system, he thought that by checking the principal checkbox and entering the account number, that will ensure that the principal amount would stay with Citibank. And that makes a little bit of sense, right? You check the principal box, the principal will stay. But instead, that triggered the principal to get paid off to the lender. The second Wipro employee who reviewed the transaction failed to spot the mistake because it was kind of difficult to spot. It was just a check mark in the principal checkbox. And then the manager from Citibank who reviewed the final wire transaction also failed the same mistake for the same reason. This triggered a $900 million wire, aka the principal of the loan, rather than the $8 million interest payment collected from the borrower, Revlon. In other words, Citibank sent its own money to the lenders rather than sending Revlon's money. And as we said, Citibank immediately emailed the hedge fund managers and requested the money back. Only $400 million were returned, and honestly, I'm surprised they even returned that, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. But the $500 million was held back and the lenders refused to return it, claiming that this simply is the full amount owed to them and they are entitled to it. And I get it, I totally understand. There are a couple of really good reasons why these hedge fund managers won't return the money. The first reason that it's clear that Revlon's business is in decline. In 2014 and 2015, Revlon was a thriving business and it was pulling in an annual net profit to the tune of $40 billion a year. And to continue growing its business, in 2016, Revlon took out a $1.8 billion loan, which is the loan that we're talking about today, to buy Elizabeth Arden, which is another makeup brand, in order to continue and to further consolidate its power. But then things didn't go well for Revlon, and by 2019, and due to the increased competition, Revlon business was generating a net loss of $158 billion. And quite honestly, this is likely to get even much worse in 2020 with the pandemic and less walking traffic, as many buyers of makeup like to try the makeup before they actually go ahead and buy it. So now you can begin to imagine why the lenders would want to hold on to the cash when they receive it by accident. The second reason why the lenders refuse to return the money to Citibank is the pending lawsuit against Revlon. Yep, that's right, the lenders, in this case, or the hedge fund managers, have a pending lawsuit against the borrower, Revlon. Why? Because when Revlon took out the loan in 2016, it had to put up one of its brands, or American Crew, as a collateral. But then in 2019, when things were looking grim for Revlon and to avoid bankruptcy, they used the legal loophole and pledged the same collateral to get another $200 million loan from another lender. The original lenders filed a lawsuit, of course, complaining that Revlon cannot pledge the same collateral asset twice. That's called double dipping. And if this was Bobby Axelrod, he would have sent this guy instead. But at the end of the day, and ultimately, I think that the hedge fund managers will have to return the money to Citibank for the simple reason is that this money is not Revlon's money. This is Citibank's money, and the money was sent by mistake. So if this money was Revlon's money, I could see the hedge fund managers able to hold on to the money. But this money belongs to Citibank, and I think ultimately will have to be returned. As for internal controls around this error, obviously this was a human mistake and it can be mitigated with proper training. Someone at YPro checked the wrong box and the approver at Citibank didn't do a good job reviewing the wire details. What would you say in this case if you were the judge? Would you rule that the hedge fund managers return the money to Citibank, or should they be able to hold on to the money as a repayment to the principal that they are owed from Revlon? Let me know in the comment section below, and if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up and I'll see you in the next one.